Welcome everybody to another episode of Drive to Win, live here from the Wynn Las Vegas. And of course the show not only brought to you by the Wynn Las Vegas, but also by Mobil One for the love of driving. Well, the race in Bahrain was amazing to kick off the season. And then we had the Saudi Arabia race just gone on. We'll get to that in a minute. There's a little 2-week gap before the next round in Australia. But I have a very cool guest this week, Supercar Blondie. Alex is her real name, but you'll know her if you like supercars, sports cars, any kind of fast cars. She is really one of the pivotal figures, has changed the YouTube landscape, has hundreds of millions of followers, and lives in Dubai. So she is perfectly poised to tell me all about the explosion of Formula One in the Middle East and so much more. Anyway, looking forward to getting to Alex in a little bit. What an interesting race. I mean, when it comes to it, 9 wins in a row for Max Verstappen, second of the season, 2 1-2s in a row for Red Bull with Sergio Perez lining up in second. A pretty good start to the year. The race, well, we'll get to that in a second. I think it'll just go down in history as a race, not much more than that. But there were some really good things that went on. Now, normally I don't talk about the pre-show, but I got to say this week I sat there, got up early to watch the pre-show on Sky Sports because there were a few things circulating that I wanted to get behind the scenes on. And, things that attracted me to the race and made me invest in it a little bit more was they did a great interview with Sergio Perez. And it was, I think, very good to hear from his perspective what the situation is like inside Red Bull. And do you remember last week I said something about, I think he's kind of resigned to his role as number 2, which might mean he's going to be better at it. Well, he said some things that it is very difficult to be teammate with Max Verstappen. He is at the top of his game, and he seemed very calm, Sergio. He was like, well, I'm going to wait, see how the next few races go, and then make a decision on my future. So it was like he was taking ownership of it himself. He was not, it was as though he was saying the outside influences aren't the ones that'll be determining his future. It's really up to him. Not strictly true, but I like that. It's like instead of saying I'm nervous, you say I'm excited. And that's kind of the way he was doing it. But he was so full of praise for Max and just saying how at ease Max is with the car. And then, of course, he got around to talking about the recent distractions. And he just said, we all grouped around Christian Horner and it's a united front. That's not strictly true, is it? Because I was interested, thinking this storyline was definitely on the decline, to hear these Sky presenters actually talking about it right in front of the garages. And they were saying, please, we just want more transparency. And there's so much rubbish swirling around about it. And, one of the biggest keys is obviously Helmut Marko, who's that almost infamous Red Bull advisor. He's absolutely staying. That's what they're saying. And he was really the missing piece. And I don't think he has the best relationship with Christian Horner. It's a little bit more contentious. But I think the reason he's going to stay as much as anything is his loyalty to Max is unwavering. Max's loyalty to him is unwavering. And Max was very vocal in his support for Helmut, which he didn't really give to Christian, did he? So I actually think the end message, he said it without saying it. If Helmut Marko wasn't there and he left, then so might he. So I think that was a shot across the bows. It probably made everyone sit up and listen in the management of Red Bull a little bit more. But there was also a moment as he walked towards the grid and the Sky interviewer grabbed him, and Max, no time for gossip, totally focused, that he was just in the zone, getting ready to, how can he have nerves getting towards a race, but with his results, but you still do. And it just made me realize he's the epicenter of this storm, but he's totally focused without distraction. And that is why he's number 1. So anyway, we hope that, I hope as a fan of the sport, that whatever's going on, it dies out naturally quite soon. Whatever fines, penalties, embarrassing, forced family hugs, whatever's involved, let's get it done so we can focus on what makes this sport so great. but I'm not sure that's going to be the case. I'm sure there'll be new twists and turns ahead. Another thing which I thought was so funny, it was on, thanks to social media, Instagram was showing Max was up at 4 a.m. on race morning, racing with his buddies online from his hotel room. Need you say more? That's what he does. So if you have the bandwidth to do that, it shows you're on top of your game. But the big story for me, for everybody really, was young Oliver Bearman. He's, this young British lad from Chelmsford. He's the third youngest Formula One driver ever. Not the third youngest Formula One driver. He's the youngest Formula One driver ever. But, coming into this, he's plucked from the Formula One Ferrari Academy. He's did test the Haas before. He did FP2 for Ferrari. He's tested on track the 2021 Ferrari. Remember, you can do that. You can test an older gen car and not be in violation of the testing restrictions. But it's just, what an opportunity. He was there. He got pole in Formula 2 in the morning, and then gets the call up because Carlos Sainz had appendicitis, wasn't feeling great. The hospitals in Saudi are incredible. So he was well taken care of, as you can imagine. But he had to watch the race from the Ferrari hospitality. But for young Oliver, getting that call up, basically abandoning your F2 race and then coming across, putting on your Ferrari red suit, seeing your name go up on the garage door. What a moment that must have been. I was absolutely blown away and so excited for him. So, of course, yes, he knows the car technically because just operating the steering wheel is crazy. But the demands of the race ahead, and I remember this moment for myself when I went from doing like 30, 40, 50-minute races to doing 2 hours in a car. That seemed to be the biggest impending challenge. And he has the talent, but the physical nature of the race, the pressure, and just surviving the start. And remember, forget that 81 million people or so, give or take, are watching. So just brilliant. So I was so excited going into the race. And can I tell my own story quickly? Just a little indulgent. My dad obviously raced for Ferrari back in the day. And quick disclaimer, I did put on social media that it was Nigel Mansell and my dad were the last Ferrari drivers. But actually, of course, you forget Eddie Irvine, who had that stellar stint supporting Michael Schumacher. So, Oliver's next in line to a pretty good hierarchy. But I really, for me, Dad said, let's go meet Enzo before, I'd like you to meet him before he gets too old and dies. So we went down there, we go in. He said, listen, I think Enzo he does understand more English than you'd think. So be careful what you say. Enzo looked to me eventually and was chatting with Dad, and he was sitting behind a desk with this crystal Cavallino on the desk, big prancing horse head on the desk, backlit with his glasses. It was like a scene from The Godfather. And he looked at me and he goes, so, in Italian, and are you racing? And I just started Formula Ford at the time. So I took a big gulp and went, well, now or never. And I went to my, Mr. Ferrari, my dad was the last British driver to race for Ferrari, you in Formula One, and I want to be the next. And he just looked and he went, bene, tutto bene. And it was a pretty special moment. Gave me a necktie and a key fob that I still have to this day. Obviously, that didn't happen for me, but I'm still glad I got to tell it, my vision, my dreams, to the one and only Enzo Ferrari. So anyway, I wouldn't have known who Oliver Bearman was if he was sitting next to me on a plane, but now the whole world does. So very exciting for him. And I knew it wouldn't take long. The rumors that with Lewis Hamilton heading to Ferrari in 2025 for gazillions of dollars, the rumor mill has started that Adrian Newey might be courted to head in that direction. It makes sense, right? I think we even talked about it a couple of weeks ago. It's the natural fit, but there's a long way to go in that one. Red Bull will fight and claw to hold on to the mastermind of the brilliant car that they put on track. But Adrian can write his own check. And if they're already writing one for Lewis, great relationship. And he has, he's remarkable for the fact that he's been noticeably absent from comment in the whole Christian Horner sexting rubbish. So maybe who knows where that's going. As I say, the race, not the world's best race, but there were some highlights that I actually quite enjoyed. And I think it showed glimmers of hope for various people. You could see how, yes, these are street tracks, very demanding, that it's very complicated to be on a street circuit, and it doesn't really appeal. Not every car works geometrically and aerodynamically on a street circuit. So I think people are looking forward to Australia, but there was some good stuff in this one. You can also count on the Jeddah track that there will be a yellow flag and maybe a red flag. And I know that more than one team were counting on that. And yeah, it did happen. But it's always weird, isn't it, going to a race with that as a bit of one of your corners, the pillars to your race strategy. So it was Max's race to lose, wasn't it? So many variables. I mean, the cautions and accidents. But off the start, I was watching, and I've told you before, I sit there waiting, pretending I have a hand clutch and ready to go with my coffee in my hand. I'm pretty good at it. But Max beat Charles off the line once again. And that, as they say, was the end of the story. I thought it was very interesting that Lando did the jump start and then stopped. And obviously George, it was a bit like in karting, he was like, oh, Lando did jump the start. But I'll tell you this, the common sense did prevail. There were no penalties handed down. There was no alarms triggered. But obviously we all saw it plain as anything on TV. But I've done that myself. You kind of go, and then the very nature of putting your foot onto the brake absolutely retards your progress. It really does. And so you might have gained on reaction time, being ahead of it, but by the time you go back to full power, you've lost momentum. So it was self-penalization. So good on the stewards for not giving him a penalty. Perez and Leclerc, great fight through those first few corners, and really you can see Sergio's got his game, and he knows what he's got to do. So I enjoyed that. I'm thinking, this is going to get really, really a bit racy. And then the cameras automatically spun around to follow young Bearman and see what he did, almost exclusively, because there's nothing really happening up at the front, trying to pass Yuki Tsunoda on the first lap. And I was like, oh my God, he's got straight into it. The kid's got his elbows out, definitely not shy. So I enjoyed that. But the strategy again of being within a second of Max, if you can't beat him to the first corner, so you can go by him with the DRS goes open, just goes out the window, because Max is already 1.2 seconds down the road, out of that danger zone, out of that window for opportunity for everyone else. And it's a great, great push. But remember that right behind him, Perez knows this track, loves this track. I mean, he won here last year. So it was, we just knew how far is Max going to go down the road. I guess we found out by the end. Crashing on a street circuit has a repercussion that it's going to stop the race. And I did it at the Detroit Grand Prix. I remember turning into the right-hander leading onto the back straight, and I kind of knew I was going to hit it, and boom, hit it with my front wheel. That was in a Trans Am car. It gets away. Formula One cars aren't that strong. So when Lance Stroll clipped the left-hand wall, he just hit the apex, boom, broke his front suspension at 150 miles an hour, went piling into the barriers in front of him. Just a mistake. And, it's just difficult for Lance to, so easy to do. Max seems to be within a millimeter of the wall and not hit it. I think Lance just judged it wrong, obviously smacked in the wall. And of course, nothing much you can do about positioning your car to get it off track, to hide it out of the oncoming traffic, stop a full course safety. But there's a lot of debate right now thinking and talking about Lance. So he's really going to start feeling the pressure. But this, when you have an accident, is the catalyst for a ton of multiple strategy options. Now, obviously, it's the rule of thumb. It's in the Bible of racing. If you lose less time in the pits under a yellow than you do under full green. So who was going to pit? But it was only lap 7 out of 50. So I was waiting to see who's going to come in, and everyone did, apart from 2. But I don't know if you caught it. It was absolutely sublime when Red Bull have double stacked their cars coming in. Literally the ridiculous choreography of Max, then Sergio coming in. They changed 8 tires, 2 cars in what looked like 6 seconds. I don't even know how they prepare for that. It was beautiful to watch. I mean, I looked online to see if there was a video just of that, but I couldn't find it. If you do, please let me know. But that shows how prepared Formula One guys are. I understood track position, and so for Lando and then Lewis to stay out. And for Lando, he's leading at the front of the field, which did start to make you wonder what strategy they're going for. And I know the team were probably saying, hey, listen, you're good on the medium tires, and Max is going to go by, but just stay right in his window, try and get to lap 30, and then you've only got to go on the softs, which you have another set of, just for the last 20 laps, which really could have put the hen in with the chickens a bit more. It didn't quite pan out that for Lando, but it definitely propelled him towards the front of the grid. And, you know, when you're sitting there on the pit box like his guy is, his engineer, sometimes the calm, maybe someone that hasn't actually been behind the wheel of a racing car at the front of a Formula One race, and they just say, hey, listen, if you could bring in your tires nice and gradually, we'll get more optimum wear out of them. And Lando was like, what the heck are you talking about? I got Max right behind me. And so he just said, no, I don't think that's going to work. So I really enjoy Lando's commentary as he goes through. Anyway, I thought at the restart, Lando was magic. I mean, he pulled out 1.2 seconds, I think, almost the same as Max did on one lap. He pulled out on those tires better than Max did as Max was bringing in his new tires. And I thought, well, that just shows, that must give the whole McLaren crew quite a lot of confidence watching him, pull out on Max. We haven't really said those words. We knew Max was going to chase him down. And when he did, it looked like he was 100 miles an hour faster. It was actually only 30 kilometers an hour faster, but with the DRS open, he went by, no competition. But of course, that shows promise for the McLaren. And then the stewards got in on the act, didn't they? So a few penalties being handed around. Perez got a 5-second penalty for an unsafe release, just as he got into P3 on track. And then Magnussen got one 10-second penalty for causing a collision, and then another 10-second penalty. They have, if you wondered why, they've gone from 5 to 10 seconds on their penalties. So that's pretty heavy duty. You don't really recover from that. But we'll talk about what he did at the end of the race. He kind of pulled it together. Again, the TV turned to Oliver Bearman to see what he did, and he was so patient until he executed that fantastic pass on Hülkenberg and went by for position. And you thought, this kid is now settling into the race. So, really good stuff. But every position in Formula One counts. And that's why watching, Magnussen with Albon behind, it was very feisty racing. And Magnussen, even though he had 20 seconds of penalties, really did his job. But from 12th downwards, it's all good stuff, isn't it? As a Brit, I really enjoyed the moment of seeing 4 British drivers in the top 10 running, within 10, 12 seconds of each other. And I just thought, what must young Oliver be thinking as he's out there on track as a fan? I mean, he wasn't even born when Lewis started his Formula One career. So, pretty much. And so just magnificent to watch. Certainly, he grew up with the posters of the people in front of him and around him on his bedroom wall. So just really, really great. In the end, Max won. The last 20 laps were pretty unforgettable, actually. 100th podium. That's extraordinary, isn't it? Then also think Lewis has won 100 races. So let's not forget that era of dominance. But 100th podium, he really was in a class of his own. But here's my question for discussion. He is able to pull out at will. He was 8 seconds ahead, I guess, at the end. How many seconds do you think he could if he was unleashed? I mean, there's no advantage to winning by 80 seconds. But I think he literally gets himself into a safe zone where they control the strategy. And I'm not saying that driving a Formula One car is easy. It definitely isn't. But he is able, quite literally, to get out front, control the race. And when you're in a non-pressured situation, everybody all the way through to the pit mechanics in the pits and the strategists can operate without fault. And that's what they do. So let's start applying the pressure, guys. Leclerc set the fastest lap right at the end. Ferrari definitely the second fastest car on the grid right now. And as they crossed the line, Oliver Bearman finished 7th. Stunning job. Afterwards, he was saying how much his neck hurt and everything. But what a great audition for 2025. And of course, Sergio Perez rounding out in second really did. It was the best job he could do. But before we get to my guest, just a couple of thoughts, because I had them this morning. It's not great, is it, when you use Formula One as a marketing tool? Just think about this from Red Bull's point of view. You use it to get global brand recognition, and the TV cameras barely follow your cars. That has always been the problem when you have an era of dominance. You actually don't get the TV time. So there's a marketing metric that multiplies the number of minutes or seconds you're seen and your logo's seen. I bet it's down globally because we're following the action in the middle of the pack. Anyway, just someone's going to deal with that. McLaren and Mercedes, I'm looking forward to seeing that rivalry really grow. I think Ferrari have their place really snapping at the heels of Red Bull. But the McLaren Mercedes will be this yin and yang throughout the whole year. And Lando does feel that given the right circumstances and the right track and the right window of opportunity, that they can challenge Red Bull. They got to challenge one before they can challenge the other. But I do think that just hearing them talk, a little bit more fighting talk, is a good thing. No one really needed to mention Haas too much other than Magnussen's crazy time penalties. But he went from zero to hero by the end of the race. He did such a great teammate role, backing up the pack to allow Nico Hülkenberg to pit, come out, and hold on to 10th place to get a point for Haas in only the second race. I imagine that, well, it's the irony. Kevin was having this tragically awful race, and at the end, the team would have been high-fiving him and slapping on the back, saying what a good job he did. So it just shows the role of a good teammate can overcome some personally crappy races. Lance, I do want to mention him. Lance Stroll, he's been in Formula One now for, I think, like 8 seasons, but Alonso is out front. Lance is making mistakes. He's like 6-8 tenths of a lap slower than Alonso. I mean, give him credit, his crash did cause disruption and allow us to have at least a glimmer of a better race. Without that, I don't know what a boring parade it would have been. But he needs to have that hero moment and halo moment or whatever. And I've talked about it before. Every driver, no matter where you are on the grid, it's like Albon having a great race. It's just like you need a glimmer of hope. You need to do something in a race that makes everybody go, this was remarkable. And that's not happening for him. So I think the pressure is going to be getting on him, because you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. He can shine, often in bad conditions, but why doesn't he more frequently? Is it application, dedication? Is it pure talent? I don't know. He shows fine sometimes, but one day I think the team will have to make a tough decision. And the question is, will that ever happen? Daddy pays the payroll. He owns Aston Martin, but don't forget, they do have their WC WEC hypercar with Aston Martin, and maybe moving Lance across to that where he could be a superstar. I mean, honestly, in sports cars, he would be a superstar, and then allowing some young gun to come in and race in the Aston Martin team. I don't know. Sounds good to me. Alonso, speaking of which, did hint at some news, big news coming soon in his future. I know he would be tempted to be in Formula One longer if he felt he could win races, but he does complain and feel the toll that a 24-race schedule plus testing plus all the social media, marketing, media obligations is taking a toll on him. And I think he might be losing a bit of his energy for it. So whatever's going to happen, it would be wild if either he retired or he decided to go to another team. That would set the deck of cards rolling down, wouldn't it? That'd be kind of wild. And finally, well, actually, it's not finally. Does the Oliver Bearman performance change the viewpoint of teams like Haas for 2025? There's going to be so many great drivers out of contract, and some like Hülkenberg who have good, strong Audi links. Of course, Carlos Sainz has strong Audi links with his father having won the Dakar. But it would be very interesting to see who would be a great teammate if you brought an Oliver Bearman in. Super young, you can mold them, you can help use their energy and the enthusiasm, and probably pay them a bit less too. But that, I imagine, would be great for someone like Ferrari to have him get real race experience on someone else's tab. And then maybe Lewis goes to Ferrari, as he's going to Ferrari, maybe that brings Oliver up to the quality and experience level he needs. So maybe he replaces Lewis one day. I don't know. Just thinking about it. One thing's for sure. You shake the tree hard enough and lots of monkeys will fall out. And in a period of such doubt and instability that we've seen from this whole Red Bull thing, which really has detracted from the sport. And Lewis has said, listen, let's just get on with it. Our sport's bigger than this. The one thing that I alluded to last week was Audi getting nervous about their investment in Formula One. Well, they have doubled down on their investment. They had a 25% investment in Sauber, which has now gone to 100% ownership of the team. That is formative. They are now able to invest at will in their infrastructure, bringing their engine program, their infrastructure up to speed for Formula One when they join in just a couple of years' time. So very, very interesting. A lot going on. And hopefully we can focus on the racing and start to get to some really good races in the future. Well, as it turned out, the Heineken Silver Grand Prix of Las Vegas in 2023 was the race of the year. And the Wynn Las Vegas, where I am right now in this beautiful podcast studio, was the star of the off-track show. We had it all. The welcome party, the red carpet event that I hosted. Remember Lewis Hamilton walking by looking like a rock star rather than a racing driver, and that's what he brings to it. But it was such a cool event for everybody. There were several race-themed pop-up experiences right here inside the Wynn. And of course, the weekend before, we had the unparalleled, spectacular Las Vegas concourse right out there on the Wynn golf course. It was a very special weekend, and the Wynn Las Vegas was the epicenter for all things race-related here in Las Vegas. It really was a blast. But you know Las Vegas, it never stands still. It never sleeps. It's always evolving. And this year promises to be no different. It's going to be bigger. Going to be faster, and the lights will shine brighter because the party here at the Wynn just will be bigger and better every time. So packages for this year's Ultimate Race Week will be broadcast on the web very soon, and our listeners, you guys will be among the first to know. So stay tuned. Lots of news coming here from the Wynn Las Vegas. My guest, if you like sports cars, supercars, hypercars, then you know her as Supercar Blondie. If you go a little deeper, she is Alex and Nick, her husband. They founded Supercar Blondie in 2017. She was a broadcast journalist based in Dubai. She hosted a drive time talk show on the radio for about 4 years before she saw the niche and founded Supercar Blondie. Today, the team has grown into over 50 people and produces content that is featured on all social media platforms to an audience of over 100 million. She finds the coolest cars, tech, luxury, and gaming in the world, and the company has now multiple on-camera talents. I haven't been called, but a team of producers, editors. Basically, they are their own media powerhouse. She is the one to talk about racing in the Middle East and cars in general. I'm so excited to have her. She's always a big star of any show. Well, Alex, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's nice to see you, but you're surrounded by dogs. So that makes it maybe my first guest surrounded by hounds. Oh, you threw it on the floor.
I was waiting the other day. I had, interview after interview after interview, and I was waiting for someone to come in and say, oh, hi, I'm a journalist from Horse and Hound. And I'd be like, yes, you're my kind of person.
Finally, I've made it. You know, I've got to ask you a question. When you're known by a pseudonym, effectively, right, you know, is there other funny moments? Because, I'm going to repeat it. The question, there are funny moments, because when I first met you and Nick, you're there, and it's that awkward thing. You go, hello, Supercar Blondie. And really, and you don't know your real name. And it's
awkward for me moment? As well as them.
Is it? I bet it is.
You know, it is, because people don't know my name. And the other thing is I'm walking down the street and I'll just hear supercar. I'm like, where's the supercar? And they're like, no, you. And I'm like, oh, that's not my name, but okay, cool. So I either get like supercar, I get blondie, I get super blondie, I get car blondie, I get every iteration of supercar blondie. Very rarely do I get the whole thing. So it's quite funny actually. But you know, I'm not picky. People can call me whatever they want as long as they say hi. I'm
exactly.
Cool.
And it does mean that you don't have to make any decisions about your hair color. It's always got to be blonde. That's it. Whatever you do, lengthwise.
I was purple and pink, and my followers went crazy. They were like, no, this is not you. You have to be blonde. And so, yeah, I had to go back to blonde.
Yeah. I don't know if Supercar Pinky is the same demographic. So we'll see. Well, it's so nice. Thank you for joining us. I know it's a bit later at night for you, but we just
that's right. So nice to chat.
Well, we just had 2 races out in the Middle East in Formula One. We had Bahrain and then Saudi Arabia. And I just was like, who can I talk to that can help me understand this explosion of interest, passion, commitment to Formula One in the Middle East better than you? And you're right there on the spot. Just describe what it's like for you and why I know they have the money, so they love fast cars. But what is the sort of interest? What is the level of captivation that they have out there where you are?
It's a driving culture when it comes down to it. There are driving cultures, and then there are public transport cultures. And, we have our headquarters is in London now, and everyone there catches public transport. No one drives. Not to say that then no one is interested in F1 and sports and car sports, but over here, literally everyone drives. And there's maybe also because some of these countries are tax-free, you don't have income tax, you can kind of afford a car that you might not be able to afford if you were back home. So the interest in fast cars and speed and luxury cars, I think, is heightened over here because more people can afford one. That's where I think it comes from.
That's an interesting, because do you think you could have become you originating out of London? You can be there now or out of Vegas or LA? I don't think so.
No. I could have done this in Miami. I could have done this in LA. I could have done this in a few different places in the world, not just Dubai, but definitely not where I'm from in Brisbane. I think the most luxurious car that I see when I go home is a Porsche of some kind, and maybe a Lamborghini Huracan, like maybe once a year I'd see that. So, just having the sheer access to these incredible cars over here really kickstarted what I was doing, because I didn't own any. I was a poor journalist, earning minimum wage, and I just loved cars. And so the only way I could film them was to get access to them from people who actually owned them. And lots of people own these beautiful cars where I am here in Dubai. So definitely that was like a Kickstarter.
Yeah. Well, with Formula One, 2 races, well, there's more than 2 races, Abu Dhabi at the end of the season as well. You see this, when you watch the TV broadcast, you see this, it is maybe the most multicultural audience that you see on Formula One. Obviously, people in traditional robes and, these billionaires dressed to the naked eye is the same as the guy way lower down the totem pole. But when they're standing next to the president of Formula One on the grid, that the guy carries some clout. I think there's an interesting integration of the royals, of the wealth, of the ecosystem of the Middle East when Formula One is there. Explain that. What is the hierarchy of it all? And what does it mean when you have such buy-in from, the rulers of these countries into a sport like Formula One?
I love how you think I'm the expert on this.
Well, you're the one there.
Well, the thing is, I'm barely here anymore. So, like in the last year, because we're launching this business next week in the US, it's based out of the US. And then we just launched our design studio, which is based out of Europe. Our headquarters now moved from Dubai to London. So Dubai is it's my home, but I'm hardly ever here. I have not been to a Formula One race in the Middle East in years. Sorry to admit that to you, but it's just not fit in with my schedule. I've needed to be elsewhere. But I can comment to that a little bit because I have lived in the region for 15 years. I think it's just really exciting for everyone to be there. You mentioned, from the layman, the everyday guy who's in the thobe or the white, dress as you described it, who's a taxi driver, all the way up to a prince and a royal. They're all excited about it because there are these massive events in the Middle East, and that's not been the case for a long time. So now that the Middle East has really grown and become this incredible hub for people all over the world, it has also attracted these major, major sporting events. And that is a big deal to a country. When you first get these incredible, like top tier, world class sporting events, it attracts everyone from, the ground up. So yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I love it. Watching Formula One, we're dealing with, the ultimate in technology on racing forms. And it's always talked about that Formula One, motorsports, is the incubator. It's a catalyst for incredible development in car technology, whether it's hybrid systems, braking, carbon fiber, use of materials, which we see common to these road cars. And you are one of the first people that sees these extraordinary, super, hyper sports, whichever category they are. That link to the technology at the ultimate performance seems to be one of the cornerstones of Supercar Blondie, and you get first access to it. Does it still make you get tingly when you go, oh my God, look at that Pagani, or look at that hybrid supercar?
Crazy.
Does it still make you go, wow?
Absolutely mad. Yes. I have been at it now for 7 years, and you're kind of, I don't want to say this, it sounds really ridiculous, your average supercar. I suppose your more attainable supercar doesn't really get me that excited anymore. But these kind of, F1 inspired, the Valkyrie and the Project One, they are still wow cars to me. And I got to drive both of them on the track. I liked one more than the other, I have to say.
Which one? Which one was your favorite?
I knew you'd ask me.
Project One. It's got to be the Project One over the Valkyrie. Or was the Valkyrie more drivable?
No.
Probably more drivable.
Yeah. Right? And also the Project One has a very special sound. It is like no other sound. I'm not sure I was such a fan. It would kind of sounded a little bit tractory, which is a strange thing to say. But that's definitely, by the way, what the Mercedes engineers were going for, the tractory sound. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
No, I much prefer, Mercedes is going to kill me. I much more prefer driving the Valkyrie around the track for some reason. I just really enjoyed that feeling over the Project One, but I have great respect for both of them, obviously. And the fact that there is an actual Formula One engine in a Project One, I mean, no one's ever done that before. So just that feat alone, I'll forgive them for the fact that, it's not completely refined to my specific liking. It's just incredible that they've been able to do that. And it is a wow moment for me every single time.
Yeah. I actually was a passenger in it.
Did you not drive it?
No, they wouldn't let me at Laguna Seca. It was early on. This was like 2 years ago. It turned up at Laguna when it first came out, and they were just taking it to events. And boy, just hearing it go by, it was so much better sound than a modern day Formula One car, because it's not restricted in the same way. It's like, oh my gosh. And Darren Turner, who did a lot of the development driving on that, he said it's a Formula One car. I mean, you're in the region.
Have you been sitting inside it when it drives? Like, have you heard what it sounds like from the inside?
Yeah.
You have?
Yeah.
What did you think of that sound then? Because it is it's unique. It doesn't sound like any other car from inside the cabin.
It sounds better from the outside. It's the way, there's a different harmonics on when you're in there, especially with the helmet on. But when it whistled by, it really was hair tingling kind of stuff.
Yeah, sure. And also I have to say the design of the Project One, I'm in love with.
Yeah.
Just that fin along the back, and also the way that it transforms into the track mode with the kind of gills coming out and a massive wing. I think that is super cool.
And that all comes from Formula One, the actuators to make wings go up, watching the DRS come in and out. I mean, in Formula One is such a great test ground. And we as road users, okay, you're talking rare air with these cars, but ultimately that trickle down does happen. The gearboxes, you think about the speed of the gearboxes now, that all came from Formula One.
Think about what Prius has in it as a Formula One car. I mean, that is a direct reflection.
Okay, now you're just taking the piss.
Right?
But no, it's
these
cool.
road cars, they're really, they reflect the...
You can stop the comparison somewhere down the road. But I do want to say, you were out, I think you drove the new Taycan GT EV lap record holder. Was that as good as I think it looked?
It is. It's really impressive, the Turbo GT. And what I like is you can get the, if I remember this correctly, I think it's called the Hasselbach package. And in the back, they strip out the back seats and put just like carbon fiber paneling there. It obviously makes it much lighter. And there were a couple of other features on that, which I thought was very cool. And then I got to launch control it. So once it had actually broken the record of the fastest EV around Laguna Seca, I got to launch control it. And it was, electric cars, they're quick. How much quicker can they go? Is 0 to 100 at 2 seconds or 0 to 100 at 3 seconds? Does it really make that much of a difference? Maybe not. But when you experience 0 to 100 in 2 seconds in this car, it's quite mind-blowing.
Is it?
And the way, look, I didn't get to handle it around the track. It was too early for that with this car. But I just got to launch control it and do it on the straight. And it was really, really special. I really liked it. And I walked away from there thinking, maybe this is a car I could add to my collection.
I like that. I like the fact you can just say it. My collection is on a shelf behind my office desk at home. They're all about this big, but I have all the ones I'm going to buy. I have a great virtual garage.
Listen, I never said that up until like 2 years ago. Okay. Yeah. I was a journalist.
Yeah. Now it's like, something I want to throw out is Drive to Survive. I don't know if you caught any of those episodes. The Netflix show about Formula One has opened up Formula One massively. You are the Laird Hamilton of social media when it comes to cars. You're someone that has conquered the genre, and on YouTube. Social media has opened up these Formula One drivers into their lives, into their personalities in a way that we never had before. It's made it more human. You've done the same, for the automobile and the high performance cars on YouTube. You've done it for, I know you don't hang your hat on this in any particular way, but we're missing a female Formula One driver right now. And I think you doing what you do, they're coming up through the ranks. Social media is going to play a big part of that. Just what advice do you have, or what's your perspective on, especially for a young girl trying to make it in the cutthroat world of Formula One? What's your feelings on that?
I would start to try and make it into Formula One, you've proven yourself, right, as a race car driver, right? So just to even start lower than that and just get into racing itself, I think probably is the bigger roadblock for women. And what I've noticed in just the last 5 years or so is when I go to car events or when I go to press launches, there is so much more female representation. And when I started, I would literally go to press events and, car shows or whatever. And especially press events, I would almost always be the only woman there. And it was really difficult because there would be whispering and there would be, people judging you and saying you don't belong there, et cetera, et cetera. And I think what has helped is that as long as women show up, as long as they're being seen at these events, you may not even be a race car driver as a woman, but you go to support them, or you go to even to support male racing car drivers, as long as there are women being seen in this community that we are interested, we are here and we're here to stay and we're here to grow in this industry, I think that's what's going to make a difference. So when people are looking to get into this industry, I would just say show up. Show up wherever you can. Show up to your local meet and greet. Show up to the local track and talk to the race car drivers. Just be in that community, because it is so intimidating as a woman, especially when you're starting out. I don't want to go there. I'm the only woman. Just do it. Because once you're in that community, things will start to happen for you.
Great advice. I know. And now engineers, strategists, aerodynamicists, the women are filling some of those key roles in the car business as well as the racing business. So, yeah.
And it starts with just enrolling at university for those courses, right?
Yeah.
I have women coming up to me saying, "Oh, I would never have considered enrolling in engineering because all of my classmates are men, but I saw what you did and so I did it, and now I'm happy and I love what I do. It is still intimidating. I'm still the only woman in there, but I'm glad I did it." And that takes a lot of strength and courage to do that. They are showing up. And now that they've showed up, the next year there's going to be twice as many women in that course. So it just starts with some women just taking a little bit more of a chance and having a little bit more courage to stand up and just represent. Really, I think that's where it starts.
Perfect. So I promise you this, there will be a woman in Formula One in the next 3 years. They're right there. And I think whoever is that is, can you imagine commercially? They huge, because it's an untapped.
Oh God, the brand deals, like the money being thrown at them.
Yeah, it's going to be magnificent. There's another 50% of the products that someone like Carlos Sainz can't touch, right? It's amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
So you have so much going on, but you have some really big news that you can't tell me about.
Yeah, so we are talking just pre-launch of something that we've been working on for the last year from scratch. We have had a team of developers working on this tech platform. We have our team based out of the US, and I'm not sure how much I can say, but basically it's going to hopefully revolutionize the way that we buy and sell supercars and hypercars. And I think, for so long we've done things the same way. And what we plan to do is completely change the way that we have been buying cars. So that's launching in a few days' time, and we are literally just on it every single day. I've been in the States for the last 3 weeks with the team, just working on the last minute touches, and I've got my husband downstairs speaking to the team in LA right now, just catching up on everything. It's all like, it's go, go, go. This is make or break. It's a huge thing. It's a huge moment for the business. We've got over the last I started as a content creator, as you know, and it's not sustainable to just keep appearing in front of the camera for the rest of your life. That's not a business. You need to diversify. You need to create other avenues of revenue and keep the Supercar Blondie business name alive. And so we went into car design last year. We launched our car design studio, and now we're launching this new venture tech platform. And what excites me is that this is something that's going to live on, hopefully, way past me. It will be a name in the industry for a long time if everything goes to plan. So yeah, it's very exciting.
I love it. And the minute we stop recording, I'm going to ask you what it is. Hey, listen, okay. Thank you so much for joining us, Alex. Really is wonderful.
Thanks,
really,
Justin.
Really
You're a champion.
And
nice to see you.
Hopefully see you soon in person. Well, that was great. Thank you, Alex, for taking the time to join me late at night in Dubai. Well, the next race in a couple of weeks' time comes from Albert Park in Melbourne, Australia. It's a 5.278 kilometer track and one of the favorites for all the drivers. It really is a refreshing change. Yes, it's a partial road track, partial full-time facility, but definitely a different vibe, brings a lot of different energy to the racing. And we're going to see upgrades appearing on certain cars already in the season. I don't think Red Bull needs to do that, but we're going to see, I believe, some great racing coming up from, I think, McLaren. They're going to be closer even in the hunt there. You know, Alonso's got the bit between his teeth to try and qualify even better. And I mean, he's qualified fourth in Saudi, but I think he is always a contender for the podium. And the race that I'm really interested in is just watching how Ferrari backing up onto the podium there. Lewis and George really feeling they can do better in the Mercedes. They got that high-speed porpoising, which must be mind-numbingly frustrating. And I know they're working on solving that. But it's just going to all-round be a great race. And I think it could be more of a precursor to how that third place down is going to shape up for the first third of the season. Remember, last year, the top three was Max, then Lewis, and Alonso. Now, that would be quite fun to see a result like that came around again. One of the drivers' favorites heading to Australia. They got a little bit of a break. I know the teams and engineers will be working so hard to overcome any of the problems they've had and bring their best game going into the Australian race. Listen, it's been fun talking to you. I'm also off for a week. We will be back to recap the Australian race with some very cool guests. I think it's Zach Brown. So who else better than that to talk to? Thank you very much to the Wynn Las Vegas for providing the studio and all the support. And of course, to Mobile One for the love of driving, and to Jeremiah and Brian in the control room there for hopefully making me sound good. All right, guys, enjoy yourselves. Speak soon.